All right, we'll call our Parks Commission meeting to order October 5th, 2023. And looking for a motion to approve the September minutes.
I'll move to approve minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion, comment, nothing? Okay, those in favor of approval of the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Public appearances for non-agenda items. Nobody coming forward for that. Review a motion, we need a motion to review and approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Those in favor of the agenda as written, say aye.
Aye.
That's, motion's approved.
Sue, there's a delay with the remote.
Oh,
And
give them a little time to.
I was already moving on and then I'd hear aye, and so
Okay.
So make sure you give the.
Shall do, thank you. 5A is final plat FP-2520-23. Request by Michael Marty, agent for Green Tech Land Company LLC, to obtain final plat approval to allow the subdivision of properties into 11 parcels with 6 proposed buildable parcels on property located off Stanley Park Drive in 9 Springs 7th Edition. So a motion to approve, please.
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Scott, what would you like to tell us?
And this is as the 9 Springs development continues to build out. Every time a new portion of the plat comes before us, the Park Commission, we have the parkland dedication component of it, along with the park improvement fee component. And actually, with this most recent addition, and I'm very thankful that Deanna Schmidt from the planning department did provide some comment, which I included in the agenda comments. This addition would, in theory, require 2.13 acres of parkland, but they are proposing not to dedicate any parkland in this edition of the plat. But I will report, as Deanna did, that when the original plat came in, the developer, they dedicated 8.54 acres of parkland. So with that 2.13 that's required with this, what the planning department has done, which is really helpful, is they kind of keep a tally of all the parkland that is required and how much parkland is dedicated. And with this most recent addition, what'll happen is the balance that the development will still have is a credit of 0.83 acres of parkland dedication. They still required to do the park improvement fees for each of the additions as they come before us. So, from a park perspective, they did fulfill their parkland dedication in the original plat. And like I say, they'll need to pay park improvement fees, but they do have a running total or a credit of 0.83 acres yet to be credited to their development.
Any questions, comments?
Is it possible to bring that up on the map, what that is?
Oh, mercy.
If not, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Boy, and what I can do, Dave, I think, which would be good, is I'll send out an email with an update of the entire map and kind of the area that they're dedicating, and maybe I should have, in the future, what I'll do is I'll include that in the packet, so, because this is kind of hard to follow, but I'll put that together and get that out to the park commissioner so they know exactly where we're talking about in the 9 Springs development. So,
Dave, this is just sort of across the road, basically in kitty corner from the new Quick Trip.
Oh, thank you.
but I still think the idea of that whole 9 Springs area and that plat would be good information for the park commission. Thanks, Chris.
Scott, a couple of questions. Do you know the parkland that they did originally dedicate, where is that? just because I don't know exactly how this whole area.
Well, and there's a couple different areas within that north-south corridor, Chris, and I think that would be, like I say, I think that would be good information for the park commission. It's really goes north to south, east of Sain Road, you know, and then we've got Terravesa way to the east. So it's really a north-south sliver of property. And that's, you know, that's in your neighborhood there. We've got the Sain Road Park, which was part of the dedication. And actually, there's some additional properties that are being dedicated in that area. So I think it would be good just to get that information to you. And you know, just to kind of put a plug in too, that really I think it'd be a good move to kind of try and do a park plan for that whole area, inventory the spaces. And it's getting to be a couple years since that development began, and I suspect people are gonna wanna know what's happening with their, you know, with the public property in those. What's nice is west of Sain, you've got Nannyberry and Swan Creek Park, so there are park facilities in the area.
Scott, is there, I'm sorry for my ignorance, are there parks on the opposite side of Sain Road?
On the east side,
On the east side?
yeah, there's a lot, that's part of the 18 or 19 areas of undeveloped parkland that we have. So I think that would be.
Open spaces over there.
Yeah, they're all, that were dedicated, and we mow, and we, you know, there's trails, and we plow the trails and mow alongside the trails, so I think that would be a good bit of information that I could send to everybody, so we know where you're at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question. Near where Lacey Road curves up and goes through the business park, north of Hartung, is that becomes what is Nine Springs, where there's a lot of apartment buildings along the rail corridor?
Yeah.
So where those apartment buildings are, that are close to the rail corridor, at one point I was looking around because it sounds like there are little small parks next to some of those buildings, small green spaces, but, so I guess I'm adding on to the idea that if we could get a picture of that whole area and what really is or is not.
It's ours, yeah.
Be
No, I
helpful.
think that'd be really helpful.
All right.
I will do that for you.
Any other questions or comments on the,
Just because I'm curious, I couldn't find anywhere in the sheets they included. I'm assuming based on the size of these lots, that it's intended to be multifamily development on each of these lots, or is it going to be further subdivided in them?
Oh, boy,
I don't recall, Chris.
yeah.
well, and this is a smart plan or smart growth?
Smart code.
Smart code, the whole area, so
It'd be
you
dense.
get what you get, and it's density,
It'd be dense.
so,
I just assumed I'm guessing multifamily, because if this is the final plat and they planned on doing single-family homes, that these would have been broken down smaller because they're pretty, over an acre apiece, so I imagine that these
yeah,
are.
that seems like a
I don't
good
know.
guess.
It could be similar to, down Seminole, where you have a lot of those townhomes or duplexes, that zero lot line, it's very dense housing in there. There are houses that they're not big lots, they're a quarter or third acre house with normal size houses in there, so I'm not sure. I should know, Chris, but I don't.
I was just curious, that's all.
Well, our question is, are we okay with the way the parklands, there's a credit to the calculations that have been done, so I personally don't have anything to disagree about.
And again, the planning department, they keep track of that for us, which we're appreciative of, that for sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Those in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay. 5B is Resolution R 177-23, amending the 2023 capital projects fund budget, bike lanes / parks. Motion to approve,
I'll move to approve.
second?
I'll second.
Okay. Scott, is there anything you want to do otherwise?
Well, I can,
Yeah, you go ahead and then I will read the
well,
mayor's
yeah, I
thing
can
that
just,
she asked.
yeah, I just can kick it off, but this is a proposal by the mayor to allocate some ARPA TID dollars from the Wayland Road project to Kids Crossing and Tower Hill. And I know that the mayor provided a memo or an email to Sue, and she asked that be read. So if you could read that, and then I think that'll kind of lay the groundwork for
I
what
will, and I think it went to the whole Parks Commission. But she just asked that it be read. And it says, as I put together my 2024 mayor's proposed budget, it had become clear that I need to prioritize the one-time funding available, especially in the ARPA / TID closure investment plan. When I outlined my 2024 to 2031 capital improvement plan, I mentioned in my letter that the city should use other sources of funds to finance the addition or expansion of bike lanes on rural roads. There are plenty of funds available through grants for transportation infrastructure that the city should be going after to finance roads and bike lanes. I prioritize funding for bike lanes in the urban service area and specifically within the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative areas. Therefore, my priority is to redirect the $830,000 for the expansion of Wayland Road bike lanes to the redevelopment of the Kids Crossing Playground, in parentheses $500,000, and the reconstruction of the Tower Hill Park Shelter, in parentheses $330,000. Both projects are included in the adopted capital improvement plan, but for different amounts and in future years. These two projects are priorities and have been identified in the capital improvement plan for a long time, and are amenities that are being used every single day by many residents and visitors, and they are in very bad shape. It is more challenging to find other sources of revenue to fund these projects than the Wayland Road bike lanes with grant funds. The expansion of the Wayland bike lanes will remain a project in the capital improvement plan. City staff will look for other funding sources. I hope you understand my reasoning and support this resolution. The ARPA TID closure investment funds available are not enough to cover all the projects identified by staff and council. I'm trying to use my equity lens and allocate the funds money where the real needs are, in amenities that are used constantly and enjoyed by all the neighbors. Thank you so much for reading this email, and I hope you support this resolution. Thank you. Go ahead, Alder Herbst.
Right. So Public Works did not approve this resolution. And I respect the mayor's, as you listen to it, it's very well reasoned. Two things in my view. So Wayland Road, I $875,000 for bike lanes from roughly or Fitchburg Road, it's Wayland to or Fitchroner. There are bike lanes on some of that, and there is a safety hazard. Not the whole road, but there's several spots on hills where going up the hill, we should have a paved shoulder a little longer, and coming down the hill, we should have one to improve the sight line. So, I rode my bike on that a lot. I went and I walked it. I looked at it, and I think for a quarter of this amount of money or less, we could improve the hazard areas on the hills. Now, I will add that you want to ride that section of road from Fitchburg Road to Fitchrona during rush hour on your bike, I think that's a poor choice. It'd be a poor choice. There's just too much traffic. But I would like to fix the safety part. The second was the Tower Hill. I agree with that totally. Kids Crossing, we would like to see more community involvement in that. The first one, the citizens built that with donations from contractors and businesses, and that's the approach I'd like to see for the rebuild, to reduce that cost. So that's my view on it.
Heidi, I see you have your hand up to speak.
Hi, yeah, just a question. I'm wondering what the volume of use is on the Wayland Road versus the Kids Crossing area, because in my mind, it seems like if there's one-time use of funds, it should go to where the most usage is. But I guess I'm just curious if there's been studies done or if there's traffic patterns.
Well, I think Kids Crossing has to be used the most. I don't think that surprises anyone. You know, that's a well-used park. Now granted, it serves doesn't serve the whole city, but Wayland is ridden by bicyclists a lot. But, you know, if you look at how many bicyclists were on Wayland Road on a given day over the year versus how many kids went to Kids Crossing. Kids Crossing is obviously higher. You know, that park is the centerpiece of our park systems in the city. You know? So if you look at it just from that lens, yeah, you're right. Kids Crossing is used a lot more.
You know, I live near there and I've driven on Wayland Road a number of times now and just tried to understand it. And part of the problem, well, it's narrow and it's got hilly sections. In places, the speed is 50 miles an hour. And so then added to that is there's already paved shoulders. If you're on a bike and you're on the paved shoulders, they start and stop and start and stop.
Yeah.
And I can see what you're saying, that already in some areas there are some paved shoulders added because of the fact that they're on a hill. I also noted that at, is it Fitchburg Road? That's the border between there and Town of Verona. Where ours,
Fitch-Rona Road.
Fitch-Rona is okay, and the other one is Fitchburg Road heading back east. Town of doesn't have paved shoulders at all. It barely has gravel shoulders.
It's a hard one to ride.
It's, yeah. So that's just an observation. But living very close to Lacey Road, the city's just gotten done paying with no buy-in from citizens at all. Multi-millions of dollars, I would think. Well, I don't know how much, but the entirety of Lacey Road now has bike lanes added. And that's 1.3 miles north of Wayland. And there's 8 foot wide, 5 foot wide, varying.
You're saying you have you're gonna.
So there's another option, so these are just facts. And so.
The other thing I'd add, Mayor mentions there's lots of funds for that. Many municipalities in the state, we've been early to adopt, a bicycle culture here. Not that we're ever going to be Holland, as Fitchburg would like us to be, but we've adopted a bicycle culture here, which I'm part of. Very much. A lot of other cities are doing that now, so that I think the competition for those funds is going to be substantially higher. I don't think there's any guarantee we get those. It'd be nice. I wish you could tell we were going to get an $875,000 grant, because I would prefer to have a paved shoulder, that entire section. But I don't know if that's coming. I don't think there's any guarantee. A lot of cities that are just starting to implement these things now, they don't have anything. And if I'm the state, I say, well, we're giving Fitchburg money all the time for bike. I think they have enough infrastructure. So that's, I'm just looking to try to fix the safety component there, and get these other things done, but we can find a way to do them is my thought.
And maybe just a bit of clarification. As far as I'm understanding, currently there's $375,000 in Kids Crossing, And then the city needs to raise 375 to make 750. So what the mayor is proposing here to do is to raise that to 500, which still means that the city, we're gonna have to raise an additional 500 in order to get that million. And then actually Tower Hill Shelter, I believe, is about 310 or 320 that we have in the CIP. So this would raise it to 330. So it's I think to Dave's point, it's, what's a given, it's, the grant programs are not a given, right? So that's just a bit of additional information.
Katie, what's your thought here? I'm monopolizing this
Nope,
discussion.
you're good. My question was, do we have any idea what the usage of these areas are? For the two parks, I don't think we rent.
Tower Hill?
Well, okay, but do we know how often they're rented by Fitchburg residents versus users from out of the community? I mean, the bikers, it seems like a lot of the time that's going to be people from all sorts of communities, because it's a travel path.
You were right about that, yeah.
And Tower Hill is a popular, all the park shelters are really popular rental-wise. Certainly, I think McKee is more of a regional draw, that's for sure, with the larger events and the splash pad and those kinds of things. So, I would say that they're all, heavily used by the community, just as Wayland Rose is used. This maybe an editorial comment. I think all people that, we want to encourage as many people to come into the community as we possibly can. They're our future customers, all of those kinds of things. So I think, certainly they're here for our residents, but they're also a promotional facility for our community.
Katie, some context on like the Tower Hill Shelter, I'm chair of public safety, so we approve all the sound permits, and Tower Hill is almost exclusively Fitchburg residents. We're renting that.
That's what I was thinking.
Like shelter by my home, Eagle Jamestown, that's a regional, people from in the area, that probably as many are renting from Madison or outside there, but Tower Hill is much more specific to the city.
And I guess I live relatively close to both Tower Hill and to McKee. And since they're in older areas of the community, the facilities have aged.
Yeah.
They are definitely in need of some upgrades, because there are a number of kids in that area, and they are scheduled for upgrades.
And it's really, it's not a determination of Wayland Road or Tower Hill or McKee. It's just a matter of all the projects are in there. It's just a matter of funding sources and moving the dollars around, and that's what the mayor has done. Is she's certainly put the Wayland Road on grant funding and those kinds of things.
What Scott would tell you too is once you upgrade the facility, it is rented more often. Now, we're never gonna make back rentals, hopefully we come close to breaking even for what it takes the staff on weekends to maintain them. Well, that's all I hope for. I don't anticipate ever making any money, but it's a facility for our neighborhood to use. So once you have a better facility, it's more in demand, a lot more people are gonna use it.
I have a question and then, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, it feels like Tower Hill is ready. If anything,
Oh,
upgrading that will help pull some of the pressure off McKee.
But again, it's not a situation that Tower Hill is not gonna happen. Tower Hill is gonna happen. It's just gonna be where the funds are coming from.
I have a question for Scott, and then Heidi wants to speak. Are there any sports leagues that occur at the Tower Hill Park? So there's.
We have rec programs there. Summer
Yeah,
rec program.
Yeah.
There's a soccer field there. They just recently used it for the part of the Oregon soccer tournament. So there's athletic facilities there. Softball diamond, used by the kids and programs.
Okay. where I live, some of the homes were built in around 1975, starting then, 73, 75, and Tower Hill is similar. I don't know how much after do you know the age of the facility?
Tower Hill, that was one of the first, that's one of the first parks, one of the first ones that were built, so it's.
50.
Yeah, so it could
It's
be
in need of
70s.
some updating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Heidi.
Hi, I was just curious. So all of these are due to be done, but the Wayland was due to be done first and the Tower Hill and the Kids Crossing later. How much later? I'm curious.
Well, I think, if I remember, Tower Hill is scheduled for 2024, so that's coming up this year.
Spend the money.
And then Kids Crossing, I think that might have been moved up to 2026 or so. But that's, or even 20, and that's not soon enough, really, because it's becoming harder and harder to maintain. It's a wood structure that's, 22 years old, and it's beginning to rot, if you would.
We're limited, we only have a certain amount of time to use those ARPA funds too.
Right.
Yeah. And is the Wayland Road project for 2024 also?
I believe it was. It was certainly within the range of when we could use the ARPA funds,
Right,
which was a 3-year period.
Oh, right, so if it's all within the same,
In fairness, if the staff needs to go through a grant program, that's gonna add time.
that pushes that one out.
That's gonna add time to the project, no doubt.
Yeah, it won't happen.
Yeah.
Probably minimum a couple of years if you did get the grant.
Well, and the other thing, this to me makes it clear that there's a disparity that I don't like, which is that if you want a bike lane, it's paid for. If you want any other number of things that the city provides for, it's paid for. But if you want to upgrade or replace a playground in a park, you have to raise half the funds in some of these situations. And I know in a perfect world, it'd be great if everyone had that neighborhood spirit but that's really, Dave, weren't you and others involved in building? It's just, there are fewer and fewer Dave Herbsts out there in the world.
Thank God.
That are, willing to devote all that time and fundraising. So I'm not trying to fix that problem with this vote, but it doesn't make sense to me that when it comes to big park expenditures, that's the answer.
Well, Katie and Andy are certainly right that, on Wayland, there's a lot of people from Fitchburg, but that's, there's as many from Madison. And, one of the pushes too is, it's triathlon route, and I thought, what the hell with that? Let them pay for it. If they need it so bad, let them pay for it. That's no rationale for me. I just see there's a few bad spots that I think we could fix for a reasonable amount of money to improve the sight lines, and it would be fine. If they get a grant at a later point, that would be great, but I'm not gonna hold my breath.
Anything else? Anyone else?
Sorry to monopolize the discussion.
No.
Strong view.
That's a good insight from the Board of Public Works.
Yeah, we needed that insight.
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
Sorry, Sue, just one,
go ahead.
one question quick. So the comment on how it would need to be used because of the time restrictions for these funds, and Scott's comment on how for the Kids Crossing, it was the $750 that was budgeted. And then with the proposal of it being $500, is it any concern that we wouldn't be able to raise that outstanding $250 and spend the dollars and time, or is that not a concern? Like,
It's a good question.
how worried do you need to be about the timeline?
That's a good question.
That's a lot of money to raise, $500,000. But I think it's a worthy project. And I think that's gonna be the first project of our Friends of the Fitchburg Parks that we're gonna create here. It really, I think that's what we're in need of at this point. There certainly is enough dollars within the community that would be supportive of these kinds of projects, but it's a matter of getting a group together to go out and pitch the pitch, if you would. But yeah, that's a lot of money. But when you,
And it's use it or lose it, correct?
pardon me?
It's use it or lose it, correct?
No, I'm not
Use it
quite
or-
sure how that works, use it or lose it. I think we've been given the check from the federal government.
For ARPA, yeah.
I don't know if we don't use
Okay.
it, we have to send it back to them, Sarah, I'm not sure, I
I
don't
think
know if that mechanism.
there's plenty of uses for the money that,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be a shortage of, it's gonna be more a priority, a decision that the council's gonna have to make on how they'd like to allocate it.
Sarah, I want to ask you, when you were speaking just now, you cut out for a moment, and you said something about 250,000. Is that what you were looking at, the dollars, and thinking that's what would have to be raised if this amendment were passed by council?
So when I looked at the CIP, what I found is that we had 750 in the last one, and it was designated 50-50 for city donations or from city contribution and donations. So I guess I was under the impression that the budget was 750 for the kids crossing, and then reading Julia's email, it looks like she's proposing 500. So I guess that's where I was thinking that it was going to be 250 that would have to be raised, which does seem like still a significant amount, but I could be wrong on that. I don't know. That's where I was pulling.
I think what the mayor is doing is she's raising the 375 to 500. And so that in turn would raise the 375 of the match from 375 to 500. So it's making it $1 million project instead of 750,000.
Oh, okay.
So what she's doing is she's using ARPA TID dollars as the city's portion of the $1 million. We still have to go out and raise the balance of 500,000.
And also that park, as a community park, there can be funds drawn from there
And I think
towards
that
a project like that.
And I think that was probably the original. If you look on the CIP for me, Sarah, what is the funding source for that 375 parkland dedication?
Sorry, 1 second. I went to Wayland.
It'd be rolled down. I suspect that's what it is.
So Kids Crossing, it is 750, 2026. And then
If you go down, it's got the funding source.
I think I'm on the wrong, hold on 1 second. I think I'm just in the instruction. Oh, funding source. It's grants, donations, 375, TID closure, 375.
So she's raising the TIG closure to 500, and then we'll have, well, I suspect we do the grants and donations I'd like to do it for 500 because that's not gonna go very far.
This is a park, so I'll ask this question. You guys are probably gonna be mad at me, but is that the design we want to rebuild? I'm.
No, it
I
is
don't-
not.
I don't think.
Those wooden
it
play
is.
structures are not something that are constructed anymore.
Good, all right.
And really the idea of making it inclusive, so the port and place surfacing and those kinds of things. So it's really looking to try and,
Yeah, we have the inclusive though, we built that
Yeah.
inclusive for handicap.
but I think this is really kind of a community, so I think that should also be inclusive too.
Thank you. Ignorance shows as usual.
I would just add that just knowing that this has been coming up over the last year and a half, I've been keeping an eye out for different play structures and playground equipment and stuff like that out there, and being that this is kind of one of the focal points, the highlights of our park system, I think that some in the community, myself included, would expect that it, really stay a crown jewel and be something unique, and different than what you kind of see elsewhere. And there's a lot of very cool stuff out there, but it isn't cheap, as you might suspect. So I think the budget being raised to $1 million is probably more realistic. But if this were to be approved, then that gives us that $500,000 potential starting point as a match. I feel like that's a lot stronger number to go into fundraising with, and it kind of shows people that we're committed to it. I think that'll be a good tool for us for raising those matching funds.
Good point, Chris.
And also, as with this proposal as a whole, not to take away from the need for the bike lanes in Whalen Road. I think that's probably entirely legitimate, but coming to it from the Parks Commission point of view, I'm happy to advocate for the funds going to Parks Department projects. So, and I do agree with the fact that the communities that they serve and the amount of people that they serve may be dollars better spent.
Yeah, the good news and the bad news is it's really not up to us.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a voice in it.
We're
so-
going to, yes, we have a voice.
No, when it comes before council, they ask how did the commissions vote,
Right, oh, I know.
And Dave will be an advocate for the park commission's, park commission.
An advocate for taxpayers.
Well, this is.
No, I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm kidding.
Start a letter campaign, Alder Herbst. Okay, we're ready? We're ready. Okay, those in favor of resolution R177-23, say aye.
Aye.
Do we hear from everybody okay, any opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries.
Thank you for your insight, Dave. Much appreciated.
Okay, 5C, resolution R189-23, accepting the donation and installation of Fitchburg equipment from Adventure Capital.
Approval resolution R189-23.
I'll second.
Very good. We were lucky enough to receive a donation of some fitness equipment, and through discussions internally, we determined that McKee Farms Park would be a great location for the addition of this equipment. So this is accepting that donation, and once the council does accept it, then staff will work with the donator, who actually, as part of the donation, is they're going to install the equipment, which is nice too. So it's much appreciated from Adventure Capital for the donation.
Go ahead.
Scott, what do you anticipate for maintenance on this? I'll be careful we don't accept something that's gonna
Well,
cost us more.
I think it's similar to all the other park equipment. I think it's pretty state of the art, so it certainly manufactured industrial wise, but certainly we're going to have to keep an eye on it, and hopefully not too much, but just normal wear and tear, those kinds of things.
Thank you.
I think it looks really similar to one I've seen in Minnesota. I don't know if you remember, Scott, I sent you a video from that city last year, and it with the older kids playing on it, which they really appreciate, because they just have they outgrow what we've got.
Yeah.
And so, one hopes that they're on this, and young adults too, but you hope those older kids are on here instead of ripping siding off of a park shelter or something.
I'm gonna try it out.
Well, in fairness too, this was, the way that they had set it up was due to their site. What we're looking to be is more of like 120 by 70. It's gonna be like a circuit within, so it's gonna be confined in a smaller area. It's not gonna be a a linear kind of thing, it's gonna be more of a circular
I
thing.
think that's better.
Yeah. Do you know where it's planned for yet?
Well,
McKee?
we're thinking, if you're familiar with McKee, McKee is really busy, but you know where that small playground is? There's a small playground to the south of
Yes.
and then there's a little bit of green space to the south of that, so that's really kind of the spot that we're looking at. You got soccer fields, you got everything else on the east end, and that was really the only spot that we could kind of carve it out for that. So that's what we're thinking.
And I appreciate that it is not something that could conflict with Kids Crossing when that happens.
Actually, probably complemented really
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
I think so,
Yep.
yeah.
That's great.
Sarah Schroeder?
Thanks. This is really cool, and I agree with all of the comments that it does seem to complement Kids Crossing. Just because of previous conversations we've had of potentially having sponsors for parks equipment, they're not asking to have a plaque or anything, any type of recognition beyond kind of these forums. It's very nice of them, but just, I know, Scott, like you said before, that for the Friends of the Parks or some things like that of just accepting donations is really appreciated. Have they asked for a plaque or any type of recognition?
In fairness, I think we'd want to offer them the opportunity to have recognition of the donation, similar to what we've done with other donations to the Inclusive Playground so I think we're going to offer it. It's going to be up to them, but I'm not, if they want to have some kind of recognition, I think it's, only fair that they, have that recognition at the location.
Makes sense to me. I was just curious.
That's a nice idea. Any other comments or questions?
Would these just be like wood chips underneath?
Well, I think that's one of the questions I did receive. We certainly want to make sure that it's consumer safety product standard with fall protection and those kinds of things. So I suspect it may end up being wood chips, but certainly we got to get it at a depth that meets the safety standards, along with fall protection and all of those kinds of things. And we'll get signage, signage that you're participating at your own risk, Dave. So if you go up on top of it and you fall off, well,
It's likely, Scott.
you participated at your
It's
own
likely that'll happen.
risk.
It's likely
Where-
that'll happen.
Wear your bike helmet.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Thank you so much.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So, nothing in our discussion/action items, item 6, and in 7, communications. Scott is going to take us through all those.
Yep, in the communication, the first one is the Hartung development. They're continuing to work on their final plat, and certainly for the interest of the Park Commission, there's going to be, they'll refer it back to the Park Commission in November. And there's some wetlands, there's some greenways, and all of those kinds of things, which will become public property. The question is going to be what the Park Commission is willing to accept towards their parkland dedication. So they'll bring that forward. They'll also have a table, which will indicate the parkland dedicated, the deficiency, the dollars, and all of those kinds of things. So that'll be forthcoming, and they've been here before, so you got kind of an idea of what the space is going to look like. But we're kind of getting down to the final decision of what the Park Commission will accept towards their parkland dedication. So
Okay. Before we
No,
go, there is a citizen who would like to comment. Patrick Cheney,
come for it.
5211 Kitty Crest.
Yeah, this is a little mixed up because I wanted to actually comment on our planning administrator's memo, but then this is delayed again from last meeting to this meeting to the next meeting. So I'm gonna save related to that. But I wanna comment on a couple of things. I know there was a comment at the last meeting, if I'm saying this right, about that we kind of have enough park land in the system that we can handle. Okay, and that would tend to say, take the park dedication fee money instead of the land. Of course, if somebody wants to dedicate land in the northern part of the city and, you know, where there is a lack of parkland, that would be really good. But they're probably not going to tend to do that because it's very valuable land. Another comment that I heard, and I think it was in part of the budget presentation, was that this parkland fee in lieu of land fee maybe should be looked at, as I heard somebody say, in the next 5 years, and I think that's long overdue. I think it should be looked at really soon, because I don't believe it has changed in over 2 decades of 65,000 per acre. And one possibility here that I would suggest is to get the current assessor's value of what the average acre in Fitchburg is. Of course, land to the north is more valuable than land to the south. So don't know how that would work out. Just look at your own property tax bill about what your unimproved land is before the improvements of your house and everything, and then work that out to per acre and see what it is. And I've worked out mine, and it's way higher than 65,000 per acre. Another possibility maybe to consider would be to set the fee a different way than just a set amount like that. There was an amendment quite a while ago by Bill Horns and older on the council who allowed developers to search around anywhere in the city to find some land, and that's been done and maybe you could say taken advantage of by some. But they look for cheap land that they buy and then they dedicate the land to the city. So there's situations like that. One possibility might be when a developer proposes something to get the value of the acreage within their own site. And when they say, well, we're just going to pay the fee, base that fee on the land value in their own site. Because if it's a high density area or a valuable area or something like that, the fee will be way higher. And just think of how much money you'd have to spend if they're dedicating really more of a realistic acreage value of something like 400,000 per acre or 700,000 per acre for some places.
Okay, thanks for your comments.
Thank you, Patrick.
Alder Herbst.
Yeah, what I was gonna say. I know. So just so you're aware, most of you know Mr. David Haith, very knowledgeable person. He lives just south of it was near the Kettle, the Seminole.
Seminole Glen.
Yeah, Seminole Glen. Very knowledgeable on stormwater events. I don't agree with him on everything, but this area here, he's adamant that we're not following state rules for stormwater or regulations. His points are very well taken. I don't know if it'll come up again, but when you were mentioning if we get these wetlands or what we do with them, it can be a little more involved. That's all I'll say. I'm not as knowledgeable on this as he is with the regulations. What I would tell you, being on Public Works for 30 years and being on, when we started the stormwater utility, I think we do our stormwater management better than any city in the state. I think we do a really good job at it. And I think, we retain our water, or what comes out of our watershed, I think is cleaned, but not everyone necessarily agrees. So that's all I wanted to say.
And I might, just as a general comment too, that wetlands and natural areas really perform a function of taking care of our community. And certainly if the Parks Department, through its parkland dedication, or can help with the enhancing of wetlands and those kinds of things, I think those are factors that we need to kind of consider. Our park properties are diverse, and they should be diverse, and I think if there's an opportunity where it can become a greenway, but it's available for recreational facilities, and then it can double as a, kind of a screen for the wetlands or whatever it might be. I think that has a lot of merit, and I think that's what, Dave is kind of saying, that we should, keep that in mind. So I think it's a good, it's a point well taken, so. We'll be able to kind of do it with this property.
Yeah, look, I guess, and we'll find out more. We're all sort of commenting on what we're not exactly sure what we're gonna see next month. The only thing I'll be watching for is that if we end up with a lot of wetland, what condition is it in? What cost does it take to bring it to a condition that's decent, whether we can put a trail next to it or not? Cause a lot of it, and I don't know that parcel, I'm just speaking in general, they can get to be pretty horrid. And if it's serving to handle some of that stormwater, then this is where I was going after the idea of other neighborhoods, these older neighborhoods like Wildwood South. All the stormwater goes into the Wildwood Kettle or Wildwood South Prairie Park. That's the way they did it. But those two properties are not listed in the stormwater district. So even though everyone who lives there pays into the stormwater district, no money is used to help take care of those areas. And they're not recreational in those sections. So just some thoughts that have been burning a small hole for a little while. And so I don't want to compound that. And I'd like to know there'd be a different answer to that than just, well, it's just gonna be there and, when you find some money, you can take care of it with park funds, because there ain't any. Okay, that's that.
So that was the first communication. I did want to share that the Stoner Prairie Park Plan update that was approved by the council in September. And then also too, the McKee Farms Park project was approved by the council, and we actually had our first pre-con meeting. So the idea is they're gonna get started shortly here with an anticipated completion date by July 1 of 2024. I am here to report that the Nine Springs Hub has been rebooted, so hopefully we'll get that up and running and really trying to target a February or so bid on that project, to get that project. I will mention too, the mayor did propose in her budget $125,000 or $130,000 in 2024, anticipating that that's what it's going to take to operate the hub in 2025. So she's already allocating those dollars in 2024, which is good.
I have a question about the slowdown of the hub project was that there were structures under the ground that we didn't know were there. And those were dedicated dedicated as parkland.
Right.
And so, does that remain the parkland dedication that came from?
Yep, that's dedicated parkland. There was some easements that needed to be resolved along with the stormwater facility in there that's being worked to be resolved, so.
But generally, there isn't any other time where we've had parkland dedicated with easements for, what is underneath there? Is it?
It's a stormwater.
Yes, stormwater.
Yeah, I mean, the next person down the road would not be able to say, here's your parkland, and by the way, there's stormwater.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing, both from the project was delayed, almost a year by the time we get done with it by that. At this point, maybe that we didn't catch it, but I'm disappointed in the developer too. I had good, I had a good rapport with them, and this has left a bad taste in my mouth. And not that
So there was the city administration there was no recourse about the way in which that was conveyed or anything? It's just here?
I don't want to comment on that. I just know that.
Chad would have to comment on that.
All right,
So we're rebooted, so we're up and ready to go.
all right.
should be much farther along than we are.
Okay, so.
Not the first delay the city has experienced in the project.
Area 8, staff reports and updates. Anything you would like to add, Scott, about?
No,
Any
unless we've
questions
had
on any, does anyone have questions or comments?
Well, Scott, you mentioned, we had a couple of requests, I think one was with the Belmar Park and King James, for those water sources. Do you have any update when those
Well, they're-
are scheduled or when
right,
they might happen?
we're working on those. I don't know if they'll happen this year, just because we're getting.
Don't need them anymore
Right,
this year.
well, and what we did find out too, we were really trying to get an additional water source to the Swan Creek Community Gardens, but all the people that are doing the boring are out doing other stuff, so we
Okay.
just couldn't get them in. So it just,
Just make sure it's still on your,
Oh, yeah.
still on
Oh, yeah.
yours.
oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Future agenda items? Well, we know it's probably Hartung.
Yep, Hartung will be here. That's all I can really think of right now. I'm sure we'll have something to talk about.
Okay, and
Is
then,
that November? That'll be November.
that's November. 6 PM, November 2nd and December 7th.
Yes.
You know, a motion to adjourn?
Did you,
Nope,
did
go
you want
ahead.
a report from Anna? I see forestry was on your, are you?
No, that's part of
That's-
the forest, or part of the,
Director's report.
well, she actually does there's a rec department report,
Oh, okay.
a parks report, and rec support, or
Okay.
report, and then a director's report, so. I think Anna's just a interested observer.
She's,
Keeping an eye on her.
she makes sure that we do the right thing, and she's always available to answer questions, so
And we appreciate that.
that we do.
Oh, here she comes. Oh, maybe not.
Just,
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, so now,
you are very welcome.
thank you much. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All motion.
We'll give Heidi the second.
Those in favor to adjourn?
Sounds good.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
6:58.
We are adjourned.